Okay, thank you, Kim. So welcome everybody. What we're going to do today is just go through a little bit of SmartList Builder. My name is Nicole Albertson. I'm with eOne Solutions. I'm kind of the SmartList Builder person here, as well as a little bit of other products like Extender and SmartView and stuff like that. So we're going to do SmartList Builder today though. I'm going to do kind of a demo format, but hopefully throw in some tips and tricks for those of you who are using it or might be new to it. Maybe you'll get something out of just how I'm adding tables and that type of thing. So we're just going to get going. And what I want to start with is just a little bit of what are the builders for those that aren't familiar. Or maybe you have and you're using only one of them, just so you know there's the other options there. So when we say SmartList Builder, or we call it the builders because it is so much more than just SmartList Builder, there are 4 modules or features that you get in there. The first is SmartList Builder, and that's going to allow us to create new smart lists or modify the existing ones if you're on GP 2013 or newer. And with that then we can make the lists that you need in SmartList. So if you need to add some fields to those existing ones, we can do that. If you need a new one because there just isn't something there that does what you want, we can do that as well. The second thing we have in there is Excel Report Builder. And just like the smart lists that come from Microsoft, there are a bunch of default Excel refreshable reports that you can use, but they mimic the default smart lists. So if there's smart lists that don't have data that you need, there won't be an Excel report built for that either. We can use Excel Report Builder to build out those lists for you as well. Navigation List Builder will allow us to create new navigation lists. And now if you're saying, what is a navigation list? Those are those lists on the left-hand side of GP when you go to something like financials or sales, and then you click on customers or sales transactions, accounts, one of those different lists. Those are navigation lists. A lot of people aren't using them because they're a little bit slower, or there just isn't one that has the data you need. So we can use Navigation List Builder to build out the ones you need, or sometimes just restrict down that data a little bit more so it's more effective to use and run at any point in time you need to. Those are the 3 kind of reporting tools that are in SmartList Builder. The 4th tool is Drill Down Builder, and that allows us to create a drill down from your Excel report back to GP. So if you're running the Excel refreshable report, we can click on a record in there. Say you click on a customer, it drills back to a GP window and pulls up that customer, or it drills back to a smart list and pulls up that customer, wherever you want it to go from. And now those are just hyperlinks that we're putting into Excel. So you can actually take that same hyperlink theory and put it into your SQL reporting services. You can paste it in Outlook as a link to a drill back to GP when you're sending an email to somebody if you want to. It really is just a hyperlink you can run anywhere in Windows. And so the only criteria there is they have to have access to GP, have it open, logged in the right company, and of course security of the data that it's linking to so that we're not overriding any security there when you send those drill downs out. So those are the 4 modules. We're going to take a look at them today in a little bit more detail as well in just a minute. But what I want to do now is define what data can we pull into those different builder tools. So the first one is GP tables. We can pull any table that you use in GP. So if you're entering in financial, sales, payroll, fixed assets, human resources, whatever it be, we can pull all of those tables into the different builder tools. Basically, any table that's in a product in your dynamics.set file is how that pulls. And so that includes any third-party modules you might have as well. If you're using other add-ons, we can pull into those into the builders. The second table type there is SmartList. That came about in 2013, and that allows us to either modify the default SmartList or to pull in the setup of those default smart lists to create a new list. So if you don't want to modify the true default one, we can create a new one that mimics that, and we have that smart list set up so that you don't have to know the 6, 8, 10 tables that are on that list to build out yourself. It's all pre-done for you. The third option there is SQL Server Table, and that allows us to pull any SQL table or view from any database that's on your GP SQL Server. So if you have something like CRM or another application that has its own database there, we can pull that data into the builders as well, as long as it's on that same SQL server as GP's databases are. SQL script is there in 2013 for SmartList Builder and Navigation List Builder. It was added in 2015 for Excel Report Builder, and that allows you to take any select statement that you want to write or that you find somebody else already wrote and put it into the builders as a table, and it'll pull whatever that select statement is doing. So if you're more fluent in writing SQL than you are to build it out in GP tables, that type of thing, you can do that. The other thing that's nice is there are some other MVPs out there who have all these scripts written to pull the data you need, and their steps tell you to create a SQL view and then pull that in. Well, we can just take that script right now, paste it in there, and it'll pull that data. So there's things like a basic trial balance and stuff like that that we can pull in. It's not going to look exactly like the trial balance and that type of thing that GP has, but we're going to get that same data into a list. The data connections are really designed for Excel Report Builder, but they'll be available in SmartList Builder as well. And those pull in the default setups of the Excel refreshable reports that Microsoft ships. So same as the SmartList pulls in the default SmartList that Microsoft ships, the data connection table type pulls in those default Excel reports. And then the last option is Extender Resource. If you're using the Extender product from eOne, we have the option to pull in those tables or those windows and forms as well so that you can report on that data there. Okay, so let's just jump over to GP and we're going to take a look at SmartList Builder. So what I want to do first is just launch SmartList. And everything I do today, I'll stay in SmartList for most of it, but if you're using the eOne SmartView product, this will also integrate with that the same as it does with SmartList, so you will see everything there as well. And just to give you an idea of what a SmartList Builder list looks like in SmartList, I have a budget versus actual because in SmartList there is nothing to get the budget information out of the general ledger that I have set up. So I created a list. Well, when I run this list, an end user will not know that there's any difference between this and the default ones unless they know that it wasn't there yesterday, so somebody must have created it. But our columns, if we go to add, that is all available to us. We can still add favorites, and we can still do that search criteria the same as any other smart list. The export to Excel is there, so nothing changes around that list, as well as all the drillbacks that I add back to GP data is still there as well. The big difference is this is built in SmartList Builder, so if I click Modify, we can see it in SmartList Builder. And you can see that I've pulled in some different tables here on the left-hand side. So I have the budget tables, I have an account master, I also have a SQL script on here. So those 6 different table types we talked about, you can intermingle the different types together in one list. So just to show you that I had that ability, I put a SQL script in here. Now it's pulling in the GL 20,000, which is a GP table. I could have added it that way as well. I chose to do it as a SQL script in this format. So we have that option. Other things we can do, you can see I have a calculated field on here. GP doesn't store the variance or the difference between my budgeted amount and the actual amount. I had to create a calculation to do that. So we can do very simple mathematic equations. We'll see one in a little bit here where we do a big if-then scenario. Things like trimming off trailing spaces on your string fields, whatever you need to do, we can do that in those calculations. And those calculations, just keep in mind, are always creating a new column. It's not like a totaling record on the bottom. It's always a new column. Okay, and we'll look at a lot of the other features here as we go. Then we build a new one out. The other thing we can do here is that go-to, that drill back. I open the budget maintenance window, so we can build that out. There's a lot of different options here. We can go to GP forms, of course. We can go to other files if you're storing paths to files. We can open another smart list. So if you have maybe your customer list, you click on a customer and you want it to drill down to the sales transactions and show just that customer sales transactions, we can do that type of thing as well with the go-tos. We can open websites. Maybe you store UPS tracking numbers. We can have it open the UPS site, put in the tracking number into their little box they have there, and pull that data back for you so you can see where that package is. So there's a lot of different options on what we can do with these lists. Just to show you quickly that it does go to SmartView, I will change over here and go to Financial here, and you'll see that same list. The nice thing here is you get all the additional additional features of SmartView in our totaling and all of that that you get there. So the same list will show up in both places when you create them. So let's go build a brand new one. So I'm going to launch SmartList Builder. And what we'll do is just a quick financial batch list, just something everybody should be able to understand. So we'll just call this financial batches. And so I'm just giving it the name that I want it to see in SmartList, and then I want it to be in the financial folder in SmartList. So I get to choose which of those different folders it goes into. So that's the pretty basic stuff there. Let's move this over. Now, once I've done that, I have to tell it what data do I want to pull in. So I can go to Add, and you will see most of the different table types. Data connections is not showing. Reason for that is any of the SQL options or the data connection option has security behind it in that it isn't there by default. You have to give access to the different SQL tables you want them to have available, to the different data connections you want to have available for people to add. So until you've given access to at least one data connection or table, it doesn't show up here. Okay, but we're going to do batches, so that's a GP table. So when I go to GP tables, I can see all the different tables here. And this is just the financial series for GP. I also have every other product I have installed available to me to pick from. As well as with GP, you have all the different series to pick from. So how do I know what table it is? There isn't one called financial batches or anything like that. What we've done in SmartList Builder is if you go to the window you know the data is on, so if I go to the batches under financial, this is the data I want, right? All of these batches. How do I get that data? Well, if I go to Tools and Table Finder, which is a function of SmartList Builder, you can see that it is telling me for the batch entry window, here is the tables that it uses. Okay, now some of these tables are, you look at it and go, I don't know why it's using that. Well, when I go to Transactions button here, it's going to use those tables there. So some of them may not display data on the main window, but something in this window is linking to that data. But what we can do here is I can say, well, I want something like the origin or the comment or the number of transactions. So I can pick those. I can say I want the origin field, and it says that's this table. Or I can pick the number of transactions, and it happens to be the same table. So you can go field by field, find out what tables you need, and it may be a combination of a few, but just jot them down or however you want to do that. And then we can build a list from this. You'll see on the right-hand side of this table finder that it shows us a little bit more information about that table so that I know what series to go look for it when I go to add it. You can actually build SQL scripts out of this. You can preview the data in that table to make sure it's the right table. So it has a lot there for you to help you find that table and know that it's right. From here you can create your list automatically. We've already started, so we're going to go back and we'll add that table. Now it said it was in the company series, so we'll go to that and we'll find that table. There is also this lookup here that will open Table Finder as well. It just doesn't pull in any window by default because we're opening it from here instead of from the window. So we've chosen that. We'll say Save. And now we're going to get the fields that are on that list. And so now we have to tell it which fields do I want by default to display. The display column here is going to be what you can go to columns and add, but I want the default stuff. So I'm going to order this by display name so that they're alphabetical and I can find them, and we'll get that comment. We'll do the batch number, the batch total. We'll go down and get that origin and the number of transactions. So we'll do 5 fields. I'm going to click Save here. And I don't have SmartList open, but I will launch it and say yes to put those changes into SmartList. And now we should, under the financial series, have our new list. And returning those 5 columns we chose with the data we pulled in from that posting definitions master. Okay, now there's some things when we look at this that I don't like. For instance, it isn't pulling just the financial batches. That table actually holds all of your batches in GP for the core module. So I see receivables, I see payables, payroll, all of that's in here. So I need to restrict this down. And I don't like the headers on some of these columns. Batch number, we call it batch ID internal, so let's rename that. And the other thing is the origin. I don't know what an origin of 3 means. When I look at the window, these are the origins. So I can define what those values are. And most of the time these drop-down lists are going to be predefined for us. This one just happens to not be in GP. So let's modify this and do some of that. So I'm going to set it so that our default ones are on top so we can find those quick. So we said batch number, we want it called batch ID. So we'll just change number to ID. Number of transactions, the window called it journal entries. So we'll rename it to that. Okay, now that origin field, we need to define that 1, 2, 3. We can do formatting on almost any field. This is a drop-down list, so I can format it to what they are. So general entry, clearing entry, and a budget transaction. Oops. Okay, and you don't have to worry about knowing that that's what they are. You search the web for that. Somebody's already defined that. If you really want to, you can look at your data and kind of go, oh, well, this batch is a general entry, so 1 must be general entry, and you can define it that way as well. So we'll define that just to show you other fields have different formattings based on is it a string field, a number field, a currency, that type of thing. You can format them differently. Okay, so we've done that. The other thing we had to do is our restriction. So we can go to restrictions and add one here. And I can say series is equal to financial. Now I could have done a filter or a search criteria in SmartList, but the difference there is that the default one will always return all the records, right? I want that default one, the financial batch default one, to return just financial batches. So I'm going to put it in SmartList Builder, and that way when it goes to SmartList, it will go for everything. The other thing you can do in SmartList Builder is put those restrictions for a selected user if you want to. So you could have, for example, a payroll report where you have a restriction for each manager, and then you apply that specific restriction to that manager's GP user. And so when they log into GP, they run that report, the only thing they're going to see is the data for the people they're the manager for. You can do that for salespeople, departments, different things like that where you want to restrict it down. So we're going to do all users in our scenario, and let's save this and see how those changes have quickly affected our list. Okay, so now we have a pretty good list. The one thing we're missing here is the status. There's a lot of different things that can happen to batches. They can be marked for posting. They can have errors in them. They can be stuck in posting. They could be posting at the moment, or they might just be available. I want to know all of that, so we can create some fields for that. You'll see in our list there is a mark to post. There is batch frequency, so maybe I've already posted most of the max number of times and I can't post it anymore. There is a batch status field in here somewhere right here that will tell me is it stuck in posting, those kind of statuses. So there's a lot of different fields. Well, I don't want just 4 fields on here. I just want 1. So we can create a calculation, and we'll call this status. And it's just going to be a string. I'm just going to return different string values to me. We can do date functions to compare the difference between 2 dates, or get today's date and compare the difference to a due date, that type of thing. We can do mathematical functions if you want to get absolute values, you want to round your values, that type of thing. We can do string functions, like I said, cutting off all the trailing spaces that GP stores in SQL. We can make it all uppercase, all lowercase, values like that. What we're going to do, though, is a case statement, an if-then scenario. Yep.
Nicole?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Abby? I can't hear
Nicole. I can hear you, Kim. Can you hear Nicole? Kim, are you there? Let me message her.
Hi, Abby. This is Kim. I can't hear Nicole. Can you?
Yeah, I can hear her.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear her through my headset. Kim, can you hear me?
Continue on. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to do a case statement, an if-then scenario to go through that process. So that you don't have to watch me type the whole thing, I'm just going to copy it from Notepad here. Let me show you what it's doing though. It's a case, so an if-then, if you think of it that way. When the mark to post equals 1, meaning it's marked, then tell me it's marked. If it's not 1, it'll be a 0, so unmarked. Continue on and look at the batch status. You can see there's a bunch of different statuses here, whether it's posting, printing, updating, different things. Maybe it was interrupted. There's transaction errors on it. What status are we at? Tell me that appropriate verbiage there. Then if nothing else, we'll look at the number of journal entries. And if that's 0, then tell me there's no transactions in that batch. Obviously you can't post a batch without transactions. And if that's not true, then look at that batch frequency and the number of postings and all of that, and we'll go through that process. If nothing else, we're going to be available. So this is how this is going to build out. I'm just going to copy and paste it in there, and I can validate it to make sure everything is typed right. Doesn't check to make sure your data, when it comes into it, is going to cause any errors or anything like that. It's just saying I didn't miss a letter or something. It knows all the fields I have typed. So we'll click Save. Say OK there. Now we have our calculated field that we can turn on to go on our list. The other thing we can do is go to columns, and we can order this how we want to. So I can move my columns around so they're in the order that I want. And then when I save this now, back in SmartList, we see that new status column. I have one that has errors in it, so it threw that to me. The rest are available to post, and I could go through that process. Okay, I'm just going to go back to SmartList Builder here and show you a couple other options. If I go to Options and choose Summary, we do have an option for Summary SmartLists. This one doesn't really make any sense to summarize, but think about it if you had a general ledger transaction list, all your transactions you've had for the whole year. If you want to summarize that up so you can just see what is the total per account, we could just do summary, group it by the account number, and then it would give you one line per account number. Or maybe you want to do it by the customer, if you have a sales list, something like that. And you can group by multiple fields. If you're a SQL person, it's just doing a group by statement in SQL. So you can do that. We can also do multi-company, and I can turn this on so that it returns the data from multiple companies in one list. So I don't have to log into each company, export them to Excel, and then put them together to see it all together. I can do it right here, and if I save this, we can go back to calculations and add one called company, another string, and we have special fields here where I can pull in the ID or the name. We'll just do the name, save that, and now when I save this, the data looks very similar because my companies are the same, but you see it is pulling data from each company. And so you can have a multi-company list like that right within SmartList. Okay, so that's kind of a quick overview of SmartList Builder. Let's take this same theory and put it into Excel Report Builder. Well, so that you don't have to watch me modify the whole thing again, we can go to Options and choose Duplicate. And then I can pick Excel Report and duplicate it over, and we're going to get that same exact setup in Excel Report Builder. Now there's going to be little differences because we are dealing with Excel versus SmartList. So little things like we don't have a default column here because Excel doesn't have a columns button to just go add columns on the fly. It's do you want it in your list or not? So we're going to unmark all, do this by display name again, and then go get those few we had. Okay, and we can go back to putting them in the right order. And we'll call that close enough. Okay, everything else though came over. Our calculations are there. Our restriction is there. Drill downs is what we call them in Excel reports versus the go-tos as they're called in SmartLists. We still have multi-company. That setup is a little bit different in Excel than it is in SmartList. So you see it a little differently here. First thing, we can turn on totals at the end of the list if we want to, and we'll get kind of that bottom row totaling there. But the multi-company options here, you can turn it on for both companies, which means it's going to create an Excel report for each company. I can consolidate it all in one workbook, and then I get a separate tab for each company, or I can consolidate it all in one worksheet, and then it would look very similar to what we saw in SmartList. I'll do the separate tab or the separate work sheet in that one workbook for each company, and we'll see what that looks like. And I'm just going to turn off our company one because we're not doing multiple companies in the same list here. We're going to publish this, and we'll go to my desktop just for ease of access and publish that, and what that does is creates that Excel file for us. So now you can see I got financial batches, and I actually have a connection back to both companies that I published in there. To the end user, you'd only expose the Excel report though. So now you can see we have that same report in Excel that we had in SmartList, and little things like we turned on that total, so we got that extra here. And at the bottom here, you'll see that we have a Fabricam and a one solution. Now they look the same when I go to them because I have restored the Fabricam company into my other company for ease of use of having data there, but you can get multiple companies there across the bottom. And the nice thing about this is it is refreshable right from within Excel. So if I come back to GP and go to the series post and just mark the GL batch, come back to our Excel report, go to data, and refresh this, you can see the GL batch is now marked. I didn't have to re-export from SmartList, anything like that. This is available right in Excel, and the nice thing is you don't have to be a GP user to use this report. Anybody that has access to the report and has access to the SQL data can get that data there. Okay, so now we have that Excel report. How do I get that drill down from Drill Down Builder in there? So let's go back to GP. I'm just going to unmark that. And we'll go to Drill Down Builder. And we're going to create one back to, we'll just do that budget or that batch entry window. So we'll just call this to the batch entry. It's a form, but we have SmartList and Extender available to us as well. So we're going to do form, and we'll just pick that batch entry form. Okay, and now what I have to do is, this isn't attached to any data at this point, so I have to create some parameters, they're called, so that I can, when I attach it to data, it knows what to pass through. So we're going to create a parameter, and what would I pass through to that batch entry window? Well, we'll do batch number, or we call it ID, right? And that's just a string field, so we'll save that. And now in that window, I have to tell it where should it put this parameter. So take and put that parameter using the set field value and run field script, meaning put the value in there and then tab off of it, run that script on the batch number field. So in that batch number field, I'm going to put the batch ID. We'll save that, and that's all we do here. Now I can go and put that anywhere I want to. So back on our Excel report, we can go to drill down and add that. And we'll put it on that batch ID field. That makes the most sense of where I would click. And we'll pick that batch entry window. And now it says, okay, here's the parameter you set up in that. Where's the actual data for that batch ID? So we can pick our batch ID column. So now it knows what data to put through there. We say, okay, we just have to publish this again to get that change into our Excel report. Open this again. And now if I hover over any of these, you can see it kind of gives us that hyperlink drill down there. Let me just to show you, I'll close some of these windows here in GP just to show you that it is going to open that window. So now we just have GP core. I'll click on, we'll just say the GL batch. It asks me if I want to leave Excel. I can say yes. And now you see GP opening another window here. And it batch entry, and it put GL batch in there. Now this window actually requires a few parameters. I have to pass the origin with it as well, and then it will populate the window. So we'd have to do a couple more steps to our drill down to get it to fully work how we want it to, but you saw it kind of go back to GP and drill back to that window. Okay. The other thing that's nice with these Excel reports, you put your pivot tables, your charts, your graphs, your dashboards, whatever it be on them. Those will refresh with the data when it refreshes, and they will all save when you save this list. So when I close and click Save, anything I've done as far as formatting will save. It actually removes the data from the list. It doesn't save that, it just saves your formatting. Okay, so let's take a look now at that same thing in Navigation List Builder. So obviously I'm going to duplicate it again so that we don't have to create it. Okay, so we have it here in Navigation List Builder. Very similar to, again, what we had here. The difference really here is that you have a display and a preview. What that is, if I go to, say, our customer list, we have display on the top half, preview in the bottom portion there, where the preview is refreshing based on what I select in the display section. So you get to choose which fields are going to be in each. Let me just put our display ones on top, and we'll just do this, just pick some in each, and we could do more if we wanted to. The other nice thing is that I can move the ones that are available. We have these marked here. I can move them between columns. I can move, say I want the origin up first. So you have 3 columns and you can put them in the order you want. So we can do that. But the other things that have come across are restrictions are still there. Our calculations are still there. Instead of being go-tos or drill downs, they're actions. So we'd have to set those up. Our drill down doesn't come through with that. And we don't have any options for multi-company in a navigation list. So all of that multi-company summary stuff that isn't available in Navigation List Builder. The only thing we can do is if you have a field like on hold or inactive, that type of fields, we can put a status image on those just like the default lists have for those fields. So if I save this and come over to the financial one where I put it, you see financial batches. And now we see that same data, just a little bit different way. And when I click on these, you're seeing the information down below. So it's really a difference of where do you want to see the data? We can have it on all 3 locations, just like we have here if you want. Or you can have it in one. It's up to you where you want to see that, but you can build that data out and do what you need to with it. Now by default, you do have an export to Excel here if you want to, or to print the list. But the other actions you have to build out that are available on the other default navigation lists. Okay, the other thing I want to show you is how do we modify those default lists in SmartList. So if I, for example, let's just go to our accounts, and what we'll do is we'll just put a note on here. Okay, so on the 1100 account, we just put a note. Well, something as easy as that doesn't take too much, but if I want to get that data into SmartList, can I do it? So let's go to columns on the default accounts one and choose add, and let's search for note. Well, there's a note index. That's the only note in here, so we'll add that and say OK. And then you see that when we did that, it brought in a note index. There is no way to do something like notes on those default smart lists. So what we can do is with SmartList Builder, either we can build a brand new one, or I can click Modify on this. And don't worry about bringing in analytical accounting. I have that installed, so it brought those nodes with it, but if you don't, you won't see those. Okay, it sounds like it's cutting out a little bit. So what I was saying is that the analytical accounting nodes are there because I have analytical accounting installed. Don't worry if you don't see those. The display name, I'm going to sort by that again to find what we want. And let's look for that node index. Okay. First thing I'm going to do
We're trying to work out the audio here. 1 second.
You're on.
So I'm here and I can hear you fine.
You're hearing it fine? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll keep going. Let me know if it's not coming through. I'm going to change note to from node index to note, and then what I need to do, I'm going to turn it on, and I can click the set fields, and I can say show the note. So I could go add the notes table, get that data in here, but we actually have some functionality built in to just show the note, or if it's an account index, to show that account number, so you don't even have to do that adding of another table. So I'm going to click Save, and click Save, and now that same default accounts one, if you had favorites under here, they'd still be here, is showing my note. So something as simple as a note, we can get those on as default ones. We could have created a brand new one if you didn't want to modify your default, that's fine too, but just to modify those defaults. Now if you're going to modify the defaults, be careful, because what are people doing in their favorites but entering some different columns, doing search restrictions, that type of stuff, is what you're going to change in SmartList Builder on that default one going to break what they use that list for. So just keep that in mind. You know, adding the notes field probably didn't break anybody's stuff. But if you're going to put a restriction in there or anything like that, you might be breaking other people's stuff, so you may want to create a new one instead of modifying the existing default one. Okay. I talk so fast, I think. Trying to think of what else. I'm going to go back and go through a couple slides, and then we'll have some time for questions. So if you are thinking of questions, certainly type them in so that Kim can read them off to me here in just a little bit. As you're thinking through SmartList Builder and all I've shown you today, you're kind of going, oh my gosh, I can't do that. We do recommend training if you're brand new to it or looking at using it. It's going to help you be successful in how do you use all those different features that are available to you. You can contact BMI for all the available training options that are available. We're happy to help out and have them do some training for you. And then the big announcement, we do have a promotion going for all of the BMI customers. If you don't have SmartList Builder already, that there is a 25% off promotion going on right now that ends May 1st. So if you are looking at SmartList Builder, certainly take advantage of that promotion. And to do that, just contact your representative at BMI and they'll help you out with that promotion. Okay, so I'll put our contact information up on the screen. I know you guys all have contacts at BMI as well. Certainly feel free to go through them or contact us directly. And Kim, is there a bunch of questions in the queue?
There are questions in the queue. So again, on the right-hand side where you see the question area, type in what questions you'd like to ask. So let's get started.
Sort of hear you, Kim, if you're talking.
Oh, okay, Cal. I don't know if there's a bad internet connection or what. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yeah.
All right. The first one is, can you discuss best tips to link tables in the same SmartList or Builder?
Can you repeat that, Kim, because it cut out the whole first half?
Can you discuss best tips to link tables in the same SmartList or Builder?
Sure. So tips to how do I join multiple tables into a builder? Let me just open a list here. And we'll look at something like, we'll just use this one. And I just thought of what I didn't show you guys. So this doesn't have multiple tables. This one does. Multiple tables, when you get into that process, there are some things to keep in mind. First, when you're looking at what tables to use and you find all those tables using Table Finder, which one do you put first and which one goes second or third, that type of process. Think of it in terms of which one has the more detailed data. This scenario, we're looking at our vendors versus a transaction open table. I can have multiple transactions for one vendor. I can't have multiple vendors for one transaction, right? So it's kind of that, which way is the one to many? Once you figure that out, put the many first. If you're not sure, try it. If you get some weird looking data, take them off, reverse them around, and try again. The other thing is when you're doing that, you have two options of joining, equals and left outer. Equals says only give me data that exists in both tables. So if something doesn't exist in one table that exists in another, I won't get it. Left outer says give me everything in my first table and any matching data in my second table. Okay, so I want all of the data from the transaction open and I want any matching vendor information. Now in this scenario, you can't do a transaction without the vendor being there, so an equals would work. But in other scenarios, it won't because you're not going to have all the data in your second table. The other thing I can recommend to you, if you go to, see if the eOneSolutions.com, so eOne Solutions.com, and go to the search over on the right-hand top, and just search for table links, or sorry, table joins, I think. Yep, table joins. The first one that comes up is a Tech Tuesday article I wrote that talks about how does that equals and left outer work. So it kind of reiterates what I said, and then gives you some examples of a customer and their addresses, because you can have multiple addresses for one customer. You don't have to have any addresses for a customer. So how is that going to work based on the order I put them in and which join I use? So use that as your kind of your basis, and then put your tables into that scenario. What am I going to get? Okay, so again, just go to eOneSolutions.com, search for table joins, and then you'll find this document that kind of outlines that. While I'm here, I forgot to show you, we do on our downloads page, if you pick SmartList Builder, have a bunch of different templates built for you. So if you're looking for just some guidance on how would I go about joining some different sales tables or some payroll tables, that type of thing, maybe you're just looking for a specific list. Come out here, you can see them all here. If you click on the question mark next to any of them, you'll get a little help article that'll walk through what it does, what tables are on it, and a little screenshot of the setup. And you'll see different things, like we've built distributions with GL detail on them. That's a big request we get from a lot of people to have the distributions in payables with that GL transaction information on it. Or we've built some aged payables summary and detail reports. Now it's not exactly like the aging in GP because we can't choose an aging date. It just ages as of the day you're running it. But they are available here. The nice thing about that is in SmartList Builder, if you're on 2015 or higher, you can import those directly from within SmartList Builder instead of downloading them from our website and importing them there. So you just check the ones you want, import them, and it will import directly. If you're on something earlier, you just have to download them from the website and then go to the import from file option instead. Okay.
Impressive. That's great. All right. You ready for another question?
Yep.
All right. If a user copies the Excel to another computer or user, what SQL credentials are passed inside of the Excel? Would this be a security risk to the database?
Okay, sure. So that Excel file, the question is if I give, if I get to my desktop here, my database. The answer is no. When Kim opens this, she would get a login message saying, I can't get there. Who do you want me to log in as? What it's storing is a connection, so it will store, here's your SQL Server name, but it's taking whoever's Windows user is running that Excel report and that's what is passing through to SQL. If that user doesn't have access to that database or to the SQL server in general, then to that database, and then to these tables it's calling, they won't get in. They'll get that login issue, and they'll keep getting a login or an error if they cancel out of it until they enter proper credentials. So you do have to have your Windows users in SQL Server with the appropriate permissions to that, and that is a whole other thing.
I don't know if it's just
we
me.
can do for an hour. Okay. Abby says she's hearing me, so hopefully it's just Kim that's not hearing, but we do have a whole nother session we can do on Excel security. It takes an hour to go through that whole process, so it's a big process, but check out the SmartList Builder manual on the downloads page as well, and that will have more information in here for you on the security for that. There's a bunch of information on that security as well, but it isn't a security hole for you at all. Kim, are you able to hear me now? We can hear you.
Kim, can you hear me? This is Abby.
Okay, I can hear you again. Sorry, we're having some connection problems. Are you ready for another question? I apologize, I lost you.
Yep, we certainly are.
Okay. All right, the next one is I keep missing how the SmartList is being duplicated between the builders.
Oh, sure. So all I'm doing is in any of the builders, I go to Options and click Duplicate. And then I'm choosing which builder I want to duplicate it. So I could leave it in SmartList Builder and create another list that is the same exact, or I can go to Excel Report or Navigation List here.
Excellent. Okay. One question from Anne is, what version of GP do you need to be on to use this product? So how far back do you go?
We go back to 10.0, and I guess we haven't had a need to go back any farther than that. It did start in 8.0, I believe, as far as where SmartList Builder came about, but we go back to 10 now. When you get back that far, features like Drill Down Builder, Navigation List Builder, and Excel Report Builder have been added in different service packs in some of those releases. I think Drill Down was added in 2010, Navigation was added in 2010, and I think Excel Report Builder was added in 10 Service Pack 4 or something like that. So we'd have to make sure what build, but all the way back there.
Yep, definitely. It's been around a long time. And the beautiful thing is now it's greatly being enhanced here lately. One other question I got from somebody is, can I get a copy of today's deck? And the answer is yes. I'll be sending an email to everybody just to remind you about the presentation, and it will have a link to today's deck as well. Another question from Sandra is, can you slow down how to get to SmartList Builder? I'm not sure we even have it. So let's just go back to the beginning navigation.
Sure. So I was always launching it from SmartList, and I apologize for that. If you go to Microsoft Dynamics GP, Tools, SmartList Builder, this would be the menu option you're looking for. And then you'll see any of the different builders we want to get into here.
Excellent.
Now the other thing is, if you're not sure, because it might just not be installed and you might have it on another machine or something like that, just let BMI know, email us. We can certainly look up, do you have it as a registered product, and maybe it's just not there for you as well if you think you might have it.
Sounds great. All right. One person asks is, we do not have Table Finder in our 2010. What are our options? Other than upgrading, are there any other options?
Yes, so in 2010, we did go back and put it there. I'm guessing that you are still on the build of SmartList Builder that came out when Microsoft was selling it for eOne. We've taken it back for a few years now. We've been doing all the licensing and everything for it now. So if you're on 2010 and you don't have it, you can come to the eOne Solutions site and download the 2010 build. Just make sure we do need to be on GP 2010 build 1752 or something higher, which is I think Service Pack 4 or 5. So many Service Packs since then I can't remember, but make sure you're on that build. Then we can download this one. Before you install it though, make sure you've contacted BMI or eOne to get a new set of registration keys, because if you install it and you don't have registration keys, it'll disable it. So we just need to make sure you have new keys to get that newer build.
Yep.
So we did go back and put that in 2010.
Very good point. So again, reach out to your contact here at InterDyn BMI so that you're not left hanging, because I have seen that happen. People didn't realize that the code is back with you guys again, and you'll be happy to upgrade when you see it, that's for sure. Well, Nicole, thank you as always. You've done a great job. Really do appreciate it. And again, everyone, you will receive an email from me bringing you back to some information. And our recording should be out there within a couple of days. So you go back, re-listen, and share.